Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. Just to go to one more thing in your genetics presentation, I just want you all to go through genetic engineering. Before I go into disease, I'll just talk about this. Now, this is a technology that's, or science that is basically being used to manipulate or change genes of organisms. We call this field genetic engineering. Okay, so there are a lot of countries that test on organisms or change the genes of organisms, and the whole benefit is to actually make something that is stronger, make something that is disease free. So we call it genetic engineering, or there's another term called recombinant DNA technology, a little longer word, but basically engineering genes. So it involves going into the cell, taking a particular gene, making copies. So anytime something that has been genetically modified, we call those transgenic organism or genetically modified organisms. And it's a little bit too long, so we shorten it to GMOs, or we call it GMFs when it's pertained to foods, like genetically modified foods. So there are a lot of items that you may purchase, and you might not have, no clue that it has been genetically modified. So normally they tend to have a label on it, GMO or GMFs. So why is genetic engineering important? Simply, it improves the quality of food. So it either increases the amount of nutrition in the food, or it improves the yield of a livestock and a crop. So it ensures that the plant is bearing fruits, it's healthy, it's large in size, it's growing at a very steady rate. All right. Also, it protects agricultural crops against environmental threats. So if you have tomatoes growing, you don't want any pests or anything feeding on the tomatoes, you will genetically modify it in such a way that it's not edible to plant organisms like pathogens or pests. Or if you're spraying herbicides, it wouldn't be affected by the chemicals. All right. Then you have the other importance is to make organisms produce materials that they don't usually produce. So that is how we were able to make vaccines and also make drugs. All right, now the important step that you all have to learn is insulin. How is insulin being created? Now, insulin is the medication or it's a hormone that persons who suffer from diabetes need. So this is the process in which insulin is made. So first, what you need is the gene for making the insulin hormone. So you have to go into someone's pancreas, because that's where the gene is found. You're going into the nucleus. You're going and obtain the gene. So you have to cut it. You have to use something to cut that gene. And then you are going into a bacteria. You're going into the DNA of the bacteria, which is called plasmid. You're cutting piece of the plasmid from the bacteria. You're inserting the insulin gene into the plasmid. So when this joins, you call this recombinant DNA. The reason why a bacteria is being used is because bacteria reproduce asexually. So they are going to make multiple copies of that same gene. Because remember, with asexual reproduction, it's an identical copy that is being made. So in that cell, they are making insulin in multiple copies. So once you have that bacteria growing, they are making multiple copies of the insulin gene. And afterwards, they're going to remove the insulin gene where they will purify it, separate it, right? And then they can make it in the form of an injection. They can make it into the form of a tablet form, all right, a pill form. And that is how insulin was made using genetic engineering. All right, so it's a very costly, but yet at the end result, you are getting a medication now for persons who suffer from diabetes. So you are able to treat a disease. So for homework, you're going to use this slide and you're going to fill out the blank spaces here. All right, on how insulin is made. Now there are issues. Although genetic engineering has its benefits, so its importance, a lot of people don't agree with the science behind it. And there are many different types of issues. For example, there are religious issues. There are people who believe that, you know, when you must not interfere with organisms and their DNA because that is God's creation. It shows that you have no kind of respect or dignity to human life because you're seeing it as a product. You're seeing it as like a science experiment. Also, it's a very unnatural way to procreate because there are a lot of people who depend on genetic engineering to have children. For example, they may want a child with a particular gene. So they select genes that they want, and that's not normal. All right, that's basically you are involved in a process where reproduction is something that should be natural. All right, now there's technical concerns or issues with technology. For example, when engineering genes, there's a high likelihood that there may be genetic disorders that you're also making. Anytime you're going into an organism and you're taking genes, it could cause some kind of mismatch, or you might remove the gene, or you might add on an extra gene, and that can lead to genetic diseases or genetic disorders. All right. Also, it's a costly process, so it's only persons who are able to afford this type of process are able to benefit, whereas the poor is exploited because normally the person who working in the lab who has to do the genetic engineering, they are not the one benefiting, but the person who wants the outcome at the end, or the CEO of the company. All right. And also the safety of the technique is not, so we don't know exactly what can happen in the lab. There are a lot of human errors that can take place, which could lead to some kind of malfunctioning or something going wrong with the whole process. All right. Then they have the social issues with genetic engineering. For example, persons, the intentional reproduction of persons with specific characteristics may lead to exploitation. So if it is you have the funds to undergo genetic engineering to select certain genes for your child, and your child have favorable genes or very, really strong genes, that child will be at an advantage now to someone who was born naturally, born without genetic engineering. So it's like, it's really unfair because you have a child who has all of these special genes, where you have a child who was born naturally with may have some poor genes, but who is the one who is going to benefit? The one that has the special genes. So that could lead to exploitation. All right. Or it could also lead to confused personal identity. So you never know if you have if you select particular genes, and the person now may look identical to their sibling. So it could lead to a lot of identity issues. It could lead to robbing or stealing someone's identity. All right, if you have someone's DNA or someone's gene, you don't know, someone can make a clone. So that is why genetic engineering has been banned in humans. However, genetic engineering is still being practiced in plants as well as animals. All right, and there are a lot of groups that are against it. And then lastly, it can lead to human enhancement or eugenics, which simply means you have persons who have advanced genotype. They tend to be a little more stronger, healthier. They have enhanced features, which is, is not natural, and there's a little bit of inequality in that where someone who possess the money to engineer the particular features that they want versus the person who do not have the funds and are born naturally and they don't have that special trait about them. All right, so I want you all to take these last slides down and do this fill in the blank for homework. Right? Of course, the advantages, well, the good part of it, you're able to create medical drugs, able to produce food at a faster rate, produce food at abundance, treat genetic disorders. So you have the pros and have the cons. The last set of slides have answers to these questions. So I advise you all, before you do it, and there are some that you did already, before you read the answers, write out your answers first and then correct yourselves. All right, all of the answers are here. All right, so that is the end of section C of your syllabus. Is there any questions that you have? You can ask right now.
Miss,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see a problem with enhancing your child because I mean the world right now is technically unfair anyways. So
So you see nothing wrong with enhancing. Okay, so like you want stronger genes for your offspring.
yes, miss.
Now they are the ones who there's religious aspects now as to you must not interfere with God's creation. So how would you so you see how it could lead to a lot of back and forth discussions there. Now it has been said that this guy, Cristiano Ronaldo, you all know his son, his first son.
Yes, miss.
His name is Ronaldo Jr. It was said that he did had some special, well, he did have some genetic engineering involved in this boy because this boy, he's really good, he's really athletic at a very young age. So it cannot, so think of it, imagine you have a child who have been training hard, eating the right foods, and then you have a child now who just have, they could run faster because they have a gene for that. How unfair it is. Because you have someone who working really hard and then someone who just born with it. So, it's a bit of inequality in the outcome. So, I mean, with foods and stuff, I don't see it being bad, but there are some people who have a lot of allergic reactions to certain foods nowadays. There are a lot of people who have autoimmune diseases, and a lot of fingers are being pointed toward genetic engineering being the cause. There's no way they proved it yet, but I have a documentary. By the way, if you have time, you can click on this link. It discusses genetically modified organisms. All right, so if you would like to learn more about it, you will look at this video here. All right, so let's move on to diseases. Disease, right? Everything is posted. If there's something new that you want to take down, feel free to write. So let's first start off with the terms, health, disease. So when you hear the word health, it's a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So your overall health has to do with your physical, so your organs, your systems. Your mental, no, your mental has to do with your mind, your emotional health, how you feel. Social well-being is how you form bonds with your family. So social has to do with relationships, family relationships, or let's say companions, friends. All right, social well-being, how social you are. Sometimes if you are not social, it could lead to health issues as well. All right, or emotional health disorders and all of these things. So health is basically overall a complete um, balance physical, mental, and social well-being. Disease. Disease is a condition in which the normal state of the organism is modified or damaged. All right. Now, disease is not a result of an injury. If you were injured in an accident, that's not a disease. That's basically a result of, you know, you fell or something very spontaneous. But disease is something in your body that is not in a normal state. All right. So you have different kinds of diseases. You have pathogenic, you have deficiency, hereditary, or physiological. So these are the 4 types or 4 categories of disease. Let's talk about pathogenic first. Now the word says it, pathogenic comes from the word pathogens. So these are the types of diseases that are spread by a parasite or a pathogen, a virus, in other words, a bacteria, a fungus. These little organisms are microscopic and they can enter your body very easily through the foods that you eat, through the air. If you breathe in, like say someone was to cough, you inhale the little droplets, they enter your body very easily. All right, now these can be spread from one person to the next. So pathogenic has another name, it's called infectious diseases. All right. Now, a pathogen is basically used to describe parasites which cause disease. And you have viruses and bacteria, which are the main organisms that causes diseases or pathogenic diseases. Fungus too, but these two are very, very highly contagious. Now, there are different types of virus diseases, such as influenza, which we all got, dengue. Well, polio, nobody getting polio and thing no more because you have vaccines. Chicken pox, anyone here got chicken pox? All right, good to know.
Yeah.
AIDS. Who got it? Alyssa?
Yeah, nice. But I was like a good while.
All right. Then you have AIDS, which is spread by a virus known as HIV. All right, so we will also look at the sexually transmitted diseases, which fall under pathogenic. Okay, so then you have bacterial disease. Bacterial disease could be things like cholera, typhoid, syphilis. These two are STDs, syphilis and gonorrhea. You have rheumatoid fever, you have food poisoning, all right? And then you have those that are found in something called a protozoa. Protozoa is another microorganism, very tiny. They tend to spread malaria. So malaria is spread by a protozoa. Roundworm and fungi, they are basically what you call ringworm. A lot of people get ringworm during flood season when they're exposed to that dirty, murky waters. And then there's athletes, for people who play sports and they have socks, dirty socks, or they have ingrown toenail and they have a lot of fungus growing. They can have athlete's foot. All right. So it's basically caused by a fungi. Okay, so before I go into deficiency disease, I want to talk about the different ways in which pathogenic disease can be spread. Now, first, it could be controlled in 2 ways. The method selected depends on 2 factors. What is the pathogen and how is it transmitted? So before, like when you get sick, sometimes you might not know what pathogen invaded your body, whether it be a virus, whether it be a bacteria, because the signs and symptoms will normally be like runny nose, sore throat, coughing, fever. So when you get those symptoms and signs, you can't really tell exactly what pathogen invaded your body. So some persons might go and do a blood test, and if they know it's a bacteria, you can treat a bacteria by taking antibiotics. But if it's a virus, you cannot go to a pharmacy and ask for any kind of drug to kill a virus directly. What they will tell you is viruses are normally destroyed by your immune system, So therefore, your body needs rest. You need to take vitamin C, and you need to drink fluids, right? There's no drug to kill a virus. Okay, so that's the first thing. You need to know what exactly is the pathogen. How is it transmitted? So once you understand how it's transmitted, you could isolate yourself or go into quarantine, which everybody knows those terms, quarantine. Or you could wear masks and so on to prevent the entry of the pathogen. So first, yeah, pathogens could be airborne. Now we went through a whole pandemic, still going through little diseases here and there. Would you say COVID it was airborne? Yes or no?
Yes, miss.
Yes, so that is the reason why you have to wear masks, because if you are in a crowded area, you could inhale it very easily from someone. All right, so airborne means the pathogens are drifted in the air. They are carried in tiny droplets of moisture. They can be released from coughing, sneezing, and talking. All right. It could be waterborne now, not COVID, but there are some that can be waterborne. So if you were to drink contaminated water, you could get an infection. So it's very important that you use sterilized water, or people buy bottled water. Some people have filters at home. Some people boil water. That's another way to treat the water. All right. Foodborne. Now, a lot of you, sometimes you're buying food from this one, that one, people in the road, sometimes you don't know how the food is prepared. Sometimes some people don't wash their hands. All right. Sometimes they don't cook the food thoroughly, or they don't store it. And what will happen? Some kind of pathogen can enter your body there. All right. So it's very important to be careful where you consume your foods and how you prepare your foods as well. Then we have direct contact. Direct contact means like, okay, let's say Keenan had a cold and he was to sneeze and touch and open a door with his hands, and somebody else come and open that same door. They are going to get the pathogen. So pathogens are spread by direct bodily contact with an infected person. All right, so simple things like using towels, clothing, hair comb, opening the same door. Do you all still sanitize your seats and your tables at school?
No, miss, but I make sure to wash my hands.
Well, I mean, still have your little spray bottle. All right. I know people probably not getting sick, but you want to prevent any kind of other kind of diseases coming up. So let's try to sanitize still, please. Animal borne. Now, animal borne has to do with a vector. A vector is an animal that carries a pathogen. So it's not the animal causing the disease, but it's a pathogen in the animal. All right, so that could be a mosquito, that could be a housefly, that could be a rat. And we had to learn the mosquito. That is what you have to learn. Okay, so effective treatment of pathogenic disease would involve eliminating the pathogen. Once you eliminate a pathogen, there's no way you can get a pathogenic disease. Now, there are some pathogenic diseases. You could take medication or drugs. It depends on the type of disease, right? You could get some antiviral drugs, they call it. If it's a bacteria, you get antibiotics, and that will relieve the symptom of the disease. Control measures are aimed at preventing transmission. So if you know you have a disease that is spread by an animal-borne disease, you will want to kind of keep the area clean. So, for example, vectors. So a vector is an organism that transmits a disease. It carries the pathogen inside or outside its body. Mosquitoes can carry the pathogen for malaria and dengue inside it. Now they have like a needle mouth, and within their mouth or their sucker, they have pathogens. All right. So if you are able to get rid of or control mosquitoes, you could actually eliminate all of these diseases because all of these are spread by the mosquito. You have malaria, dengue fever, yellow elephantitis. Well, we haven't really discovered this one in the Caribbean, but it's around the world, places that have mosquitoes. Now we have to understand the life cycle if we want to get rid of it. So let's go to the life cycle. Now, the adult mosquito usually lay their eggs in the surface of stagnant waters. Aedes aegypti is the one that causes yellow fever, dengue, but they prefer clean water, mind you. But stagnant means they're not moving. So you see all them container you have outside that open, either you put a lid or get rid of it. Now, within a few days, the eggs hatch into larvae, which feed on microscopic animals in the water. Larvae uses air tube in which it gets oxygen. So if you have water that is stagnant or water that is just open, they are still able to breed. So what you could do, some people, they may either have like some kind of fish in the water. Like if they're living close to a river or pond, they will introduce a fish, or they may introduce frogs, and they will basically feed on the larva or the pupa in the water, which will get rid of the mosquito. And that's when you use an animal to get rid of another animal, you call it a biological control. All right, so I'm just going to the cycle. Now you have the adult, which lays the eggs which turns into larva, which turns into a pupa. Now, do you see these three? Once you get rid of stagnant water, you get rid of these. What is a way to get rid of the adult now? How do you get rid of an adult mosquito?
Yes, they can.
Spraying.
Yes, we could use nets and pesticides. Yeah.
Right, very good. So I heard pesticides or insecticides, those aerosol
And
sprays.
And sometimes they can manually kill them.
Yeah, you have, well, you have the zappers. That is really helpful, the mosquito zapper. Then you have the nets that you could use. Well, people don't really sleep with nets nowadays. They either have the windows closed, they get rid of smelly clothes because mosquitoes are attracted to laundry, dirty laundry, or black clothing. All right. So that's ways you can get rid of the adults. Now, if you have open water by you, get rid of it. If you have bushes, cut the bushes because sometimes the bushes tend to have water in the leaves and they lay the eggs there. Some people use oil or kerosene in the surface of water. So these two can suffocate. Or they may introduce another animal like a fish or toads, which will get rid of these three altogether. All right, so once you understand this life cycle and you get rid of each stage, then you have less risk of getting some kind of like dengue or yellow fever or what have you. Now, you all don't need to learn the housefly. You could just read it through just to have an idea, but you don't need to know that one. Right? The cycle is very similar to the mosquito. All right, so I want to go into last thing I will do. Next week, I'll continue. I want to talk about AIDS. AIDS is a pathogen. Well, it's first to begin, it stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. How is AIDS caused? First, the person has to have HIV virus. All right. HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus. How does someone get HIV? Through either the sexual intercourse with someone who has HIV, or sharing of infected needles, or you can get it through, let's say, blood transfusion. There was someone who got it from a blood transfusion. All right. Now the thing is, okay, so here are some other ways. If there's close contact between cuts and open wounds of an infected and non-infected person. So let's say someone had an open cut and they were you sitting in the bus next to them. And let's say the bus driver mash up hard brakes and two of all crash together. And those two cuts, the cut and your open wound, touch or come close. That's another way. Also from infected mother to her developing baby through placenta or breastfeeding. So if the mother has HIV, it can be spread to her baby as well. All right, so these are different ways. Now you cannot get it from casual contact, like if you hold somebody's hand, sneezing, coughing, if it's sitting in the toilet that someone who has HIV sat in, no, you can't get it so. Signs and symptoms of the disease vary. After exposure to the virus, there's what you call a period between 6 weeks to years before before the virus or an antibody against the virus is detected in the blood. So there are people who have HIV and they are asymptomatic, in other words. They are not showing any symptoms because it usually takes a while for signs and symptoms to develop or for the virus to be detected in the blood. All right, so once it is detected, however, persons tend to have like swollen lymph nodes, they feel weak, fever, they have diarrhea, they have a rash. Some of them never have symptoms, they are called carriers. Right. Now, eventually, what this virus does, it attacks. Right. This virus itself, HIV, it binds to the surface of white blood cells. So your white blood cells are being invaded by the virus. And there's a particular white blood cell that you have called T4 cells or helper cells. When these cells are destroyed, your immune system is getting weaker. So you can no longer fight off any kind of infection. Once the immune system has been destroyed, you are now what you call suffering from AIDS. So AIDS is it's acquired through the when your immune system is deficient, which results from the HIV virus. So it takes years, approximately 10 years for someone with HIV to develop AIDS. All right. Now, AIDS, when you get AIDS, you don't die from AIDS, but you die from another infection. So simple things like common cold or whatever little virus that might enter your body. Because you don't have this T4 cells again, you cannot fight off a pathogen. So therefore, you have a higher chance of dying from another infection. Okay, so the infected person becomes susceptible to pathogens, which are normally destroyed by these cells, and vulnerable to a wide range of disease. Death results from any of the diseases. And that's basically, now AIDS was really diagnosed in 1981. There was a small population of homosexual men, but it occurring in straight males, straight females. But it's something that they have found particular drugs. So there are actual antiviral drugs that persons can take nowadays that can kill the HIV virus, but it will not remove it totally. It will just stop it from multiplying. but they still have it. All right, so they have drugs to control it or prevent it from reaching AIDS. All right, but it depends on how early or clock the person diagnosed. So once you diagnose that you have HIV early o'clock, there is a window or chance that you could stop it from developing into AIDS. All right, now to control AIDS can be controlled if the spread of HIV is reduced. So it's simply modifying sexual behavior. So you have one partner or abstinence. So no sex. Or you could have the partner that you choose in life, you have to make sure they do a STD test every year. Or you could use condom. Condom is the only barrier method that can prevent an STD. Well, not 100% safe, but all right. Use clean needles and syringes. Test all donated blood. Educate the public. There's still people who don't know about this disease at all. All right. And then testing pregnant women for antibodies. So if someone is pregnant, you test them early o'clock to see if they have HIV. And if they have HIV, you have to give them the antiviral drugs so that it will reduce the risk of the baby being infected. All right, so I would like you all to just read through this slide. We will discuss gonorrhea. We will discuss the other diseases, deficiency, and then the other one we have genetic. Well, genetic disease would be the two that we covered, which is sickle cell disease and hemophilia and colorblind disease. All right, so this one is very straightforward. It's physiological. We have to look at diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. So next week, please God, we will finish off this section. And I want you all for homework. I want you all to start working on a past paper here. All right, I'm giving you your first multiple choice. You're going to work on June 2017. You're going to see at least 5 years of papers, but let's work on this 2017 paper one first. Can you all do that for next week, Saturday? I should be hearing yes, miss, or, you know, I'll try, miss, something.
Okay, miss.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Yes, miss.
Wonderful, Keenan. Okay, so let's wrap up. So the last, like I said, you're doing the 2017 paper one, you're doing your genetic engineering question in the slide, you're reading through the disease presentation. All right, so have a good weekend and I'll see you all next week, please God. Take care.
You too, miss.
Goodbye.